What if I told you that Darth Vader's greatest fear wasn't the Emperor, wasn't losing to Luke, but rather returning to a small patch of sand where his mother was buried? Today we're unraveling one of the most tragic details in Star Wars, why the Dark Lord of the Sith never visited Shmi Skywalker's grave, and how this choice reveals everything about the man trapped inside that armor. If you're a Star Wars fan, you know that Anakin Skywalker's story is built on loss. But there's one loss that started it all, his mother, Shmi. She died in his arms, on Tatooine, and that moment was the first domino falling toward the dark side. But here's what's fascinating. Even as Darth Vader, with all the power in the galaxy at his command, he never once visited her grave. Why? Let's break down the psychology, the canon comics, and the devastating truth behind Vader's absence. First, let's revisit what happened. In Attack of the Clones, Anakin has visions of his mother, in terrible pain. Against Obi-Wan's orders, he rushes back to Tatooine, only to find Shmi captured and tortured by Tusken Raiders. He arrives too late. She dies in his arms. And in that moment of pure rage and grief, Anakin slaughters the entire Tusken camp, men, women, children, everyone. This wasn't just a tragedy. This was the moment Anakin first tapped into the dark side, with intent. His mother's death planted the seed of what he would become. She was buried at the Lars homestead, next to what would become Luke's childhood home, a simple grave in the Tatooine desert, marking the final resting place of the woman who taught Anakin about freedom, hope, and love. But here's the thing. Decades would pass, and Vader would never return to pay his respects. To understand why, we need to understand what Vader truly is. He's not just Anakin with a new name. He's a persona built on the complete rejection of everything Anakin was. The comics have explored this brilliantly. Vader himself tells Obi-Wan, "I am not your failure. You didn't kill Anakin Skywalker. I did." Every memory of Anakin is a source of pain, weakness, and rage for Vader. His mother represents the most vulnerable part of Anakin, the boy who loved, who hoped, who dreamed of freeing slaves and making the galaxy better. Vader can't allow that boy to exist anymore because that boy failed. He failed to save Shmi. He failed to save Padme. He failed to prevent his own fall. Tatooine itself is a monument to those failures. It's where he was a slave. It's where his mother died. It's where he committed his first massacre. Even Palpatine recognized this. In the Darth Vader Dark Lord of the Sith comics, the Emperor offers Vader his own world to rule, and specifically mentions Tatooine, even suggesting Vader could destroy the entire planet as revenge for his suffering there. But Vader doesn't take him up on it. Why? Because destroying Tatooine would mean acknowledging it matters. And acknowledging it means acknowledging Anakin. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. In the 2020 Darth Vader comics, Vader does eventually return to Tatooine. This happens after the Empire strikes back, when he's hunting down everyone who hid Luke from him. He goes to the Lars homestead, the place where his mother was buried. And you know what? The grave marker is gone. According to the comics, Owen and Beru removed Shmi's headstone, along with others in the family plot, to protect Luke. They didn't want the boy asking questions about his grandmother, about the Skywalker name, about connections that could expose his true heritage. The droid accompanying Vader informs him that his mother's grave marker was deliberately hidden, to keep her life, and by extension Luke's existence, secret from him. This revelation hits Vader hard. His mother's grave, the last physical connection to Anakin Skywalker's soul, has been erased, hidden, as if she never existed, as if Anakin never existed. But here's the most heartbreaking detail from these comics. When Vader is at the homestead, standing near where his mother is buried, a panel shows him deliberately turning away. He knows she's there. He could look, he could acknowledge it, but he doesn't. Why? Because looking would mean feeling, and feeling would mean being Anakin again. Vader has spent decades building walls around that pain. using it as fuel for his rage, rather than confronting it. To stand at his mother's grave would force him to remember the promises he made, that he would return, that he would free her, that he would be more than just a slave boy from the desert. He broke those promises, and Vader can't face that. This connects to something even larger in Vader's story. Throughout the comics, we see him reject anything that reminds him of his humanity. He nearly tears open Padmé's grave because he needs to know how she died, but he can't bring himself to truly mourn her. He kills anyone who speaks Anakin's name. He avoids the places where Anakin was happy. In Legends material, the old expanded universe, there's even a scene where Obi-Wan learns from Qui-Gon's Force ghost that Vader will never set foot on Tatooine again. Qui-Gon says that the core of Anakin within Vader grasps that Tatooine is the source of nearly everything that causes him pain, and that Vader will avoid it out of fear of reawakening Anakin. Think about that. The most powerful enforcer in the galaxy, a man who brings star systems to their knees, is afraid of a small desert planet because of what it represents. So why does all this matter? Because it shows us that Darth Vader isn't just evil, he's broken. He's a man so consumed by grief and self-hatred that he can't even honor the memory of the person who loved him most, unconditionally. Shmi Skywalker never stopped believing in her son. She gave him permission to leave, to become more than a slave, to chase his dreams, and in return, Vader won't even look at where she's buried. This is what makes his redemption in Return of the Jedi so powerful. When Luke tells him, "There's still good in you," and later, "I am a Jedi like my father before me," he's not talking to Vader. He's talking to Anakin. And for the first time in decades, Anakin listens. He allows himself to feel. He allows himself to be vulnerable. He does what he couldn't do at his mother's grave. He chooses love over fear. The story of Vader and his mother's grave is ultimately about how we deal with our past. Vader tried to bury his pain, to kill who he was, to avoid the places and people that reminded him of his failures. But that pain doesn't disappear. It festers. It grows. It consumes. It's only when Vader finally confronts his past, when he allows Anakin to exist again in that moment with Luke, that he finds peace. Maybe if he had visited his mother's grave, if he had allowed himself to grieve properly, things would have been different. But that's the tragedy of Darth Vader. He was always running from the pain, until, at the very end, he finally stopped. So yeah, Vader never visited his mother's grave, but in a way, he visited it every day, because her death haunted him, shaped him, and ultimately, her memory of teaching him about love and freedom is what Luke awakened in that final confrontation with Palpatine. What do you think? Did Vader make the right choice by avoiding Tatooine? Or should he have confronted his past sooner? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this analysis, hit that like button and subscribe for more Star Wars content. May the Force be with you, always.